Hey guys, what's going on? Me, Jay. I'm here to weigh in on the new law that just passed not so long ago in Texas, stating that a woman can't get an abortion after 6 weeks of being pregnant. And how I feel like it's a political move to entrench Texas into the conservative movement, and of course to strip away the civil rights and the rights of women acquired after Roe v. Wade in the 1970s. Now, first of all, my personal feelings on the issue. I feel like it's a woman's choice whether or not she wants to have an abortion. Me personally, as a religious individual, I don't agree with abortion, and if I were a woman, I probably wouldn't have one. But I don't feel like the government should come in and attempt to take over the autonomy of a woman and tell a woman what she has to have a baby especially even if she was a victim of rape or incest, which could put the public health at risk. You know, they effectively banned abortion in Texas because a lot of hey Lisa, most women don't even know they're pregnant till after 6 weeks. So you've banned it in name only. You're saying, oh well, we didn't completely ban it, we didn't completely overturn it, but we banned it after 6 weeks. Well, duh, you know, you did it in name only because she's not gonna know she's pregnant until after 6 weeks. So you did it slowly. You did it in a more diplomatic way, but you've done it. You've effectively done it, effectively done away with abortion in Texas. Now, a woman that is a victim of rape or incest is going to have to go to another state where the law is not into effect or risk her life in back alley abortions like they used to do in the days before Roe v. Wade got passed in 1973. And the woman could risk her health. She could die. So it's not a question of morality. This is what they always say. Oh, well, it's a question of morality. It's against the Bible to have an abortion because God says be fruitful and multiply. Yes, God does say that. But you have to think of why God said saying that. Why all these religions stress no abortions? It's to increase the numbers. One of the ways that religions increase numbers is by having multiple children. So if women don't get to determine whether they have a kid or not because abortion is illegal, then all these religions will then have a lot of children. That's why religions such as the Mennonites or the Amish or Hasidic Jews or radical Muslims or even evangelical Christians, like was featured on the show Seventh Heaven, they don't believe in abortion and they don't use contraception because birth rates increase religious numbers. Yes, conversions do too, but people that are born into one religion, raised into one religion, are less likely to convert to a different religion than they are to just stay where they're at. But birth rates, man, they get those religious numbers up. Think about it. That's what the Europeans are scared of when it comes to Islam. Europeans are scared of a demographic shift. They're scared of more Muslims being born and less Europeans being born because European birth rates in Europe are very low, but Muslim birth rates are high because Europeans have abortions, Europeans use contraceptions, and Muslims that are coming into Europe are not. Texas is the exact same way. Texas is afraid that the white population of Texas, the Anglo-Texans population, the white population of Texas is going down, and the Hispanic population of Texas is going up. Because the Hispanics have strong religious beliefs, they don't really use contraceptions because it's banned by the Pope and a lot of them don't really have abortions. But the white people that are mostly Christian Protestants, that are not really the strong ones, not the ones like pushing for this law, but the regular ones, the mainstream Protestants or the mainline Protestants, they do have abortions and they do use contraceptions. So their population is going low while the Hispanic population is going high. So they want to try to reverse trends in order to keep Texas a blue, white Republican, a red, white Republican state. We talked about this in another video. We talked about Biden, how Biden and the Biden Trump election, how Texas was almost purple. Texas almost switched allegiances like Arizona did because of the demographics. And they know that. So one way to entrench conservative rulership or conservative values, if you will, into the state of Texas is to have more Christian conservatives have more babies and produce more families. And one way to do that is by outlawing abortion in the state of Texas. But what it's gonna do too is cause a rift between the surrounding more liberal states and Texas. It's gonna make Texas look like an island unto herself. Because now she's gonna have this extremist law. Her population is gonna look like the Handmaid's Tale, and everybody else is gonna have normal laws. And this is a problem that we've always had with regards to the United States. And how does one govern a country that is so vast and so large under one umbrella, under one rulership? We have different values here in New York than they have in Texas. Nebraska has different values than California might have. So we all don't have the same values, and we're all not going to vote for the same things, but we're all one country. But if one state starts passing laws saying, well, okay, this is what we're going to do just in our state, that are radically different from the federal laws, from what every other state does, then that causes conflict because we're not on the same page then. That's exactly what caused the first Civil War in the 1860s. One part of the United States, one bunch of states, which was the Confederacy, wanted to continue to have slavery, while another bunch of states, was the Union, did not. So of course the Confederacy states to leave the Union. And the Union people in Washington, President Lincoln, Abraham was like, you can't leave this Union, this United States. You can't break up this country. So this is exactly what's happening now. And again, the same thing happened in the 1960s with regards to Jim Crow. Half of the population wanted to abide by Plessy versus Ferguson, which was passed in 1894, that blacks and whites were separate, but quote unquote separate but equal status. And another half of the United States, which was the North, East, and the West, said, no, that's bullshit. You can't do that. You can't discriminate against a person based on the color of their skin. And we didn't go to war then, but we almost did. Thankfully, to John Kennedy's administration and Lyndon Johnson later passing the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 65 that used the federal government to override the state government. Say, no, Washington, D.C. stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. You can't discriminate against a whole population on the basis of race. I don't care that states are supposed to have autonomy or states' rights. This is the federal law, and the states have to abide by the federal law. The federal government had to step in twice in American history because of that, and it seems like that this may be something that the federal government will have to step in to and to tell Texas, listen, Texas, you can't do that. You know what I mean? That's illegal. I mean, yes, your people voted for that, but either you leave the United States right now and you become your own country again, because something in the Texas Constitution um, gives Texas the right to secede from the Union when because they elected to become part of the United States after winning the Mexican American War in 1848, and they and they voluntarily joined the United States, but they always had the option to leave. So they that may be something. I don't think that's going to happen, but my point is different states with different radically different laws. We all have different cultures. There are different flavors to different states, but radically different laws. I don't see how a country can function like that. Like Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. How can one state, how can one part of the country, one state advocate for freedom and equality and another one not? Um, Now, what the Republicans will say was, well, we can remain a country united if we just all overturn Roe v. Wade and then just ban abortion in all 50. That's what they would like to do. And with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett in 2020, they do have the Supreme Court in their favor. They're more concerned. Right, exactly. Right. I was Lisa beat me to it, but I was just gonna say that. Amy Coney Barrett, Neil Gorsuch, but Amy Coney Barrett sealed the deal, Lisa. Okay, you had Kavanaugh, you had Gorsuch, but Amy ACB sealed the deal. Ginsburg's death changed the court forever. Now they have more conservative judges on the court than liberal judges. Who the liberal judges are? I guess John Roberts kind of sits in the middle. He's kind of a midway. But the liberal judges, you have Sotomayor. Because remember, they blocked Merrick Garland when when Scalia died and Obama wanted to appoint Merrick Garland. They blocked him, so he's not on there. You have Sotomayor. Uh, you have uh, well, Sotomayor is one. Wow, they're completely they're completely outnumbered. The liberal judges. She's like the only really hardcore liberal judge on the court. Wow. And there was an incident in 1987 where hold up, let me look up the Supreme Court judges. No, you can't do that. Elaine Kagan, I forgot about her. Thomas, of course, is a conservative judge as well. Uh, Alito is on there, but you have majority. The point is, you have majority conservative judges now. You can't kick out uh, ACB. No, she's there. She was confirmed. That's it. But and I was gonna say in the '80s there was this time where it was 1987 where President Reagan was going to appoint a man by the name of Robert Bork to the Supreme Court, and Ted Kennedy vetoed it. And when this guy Robert Bork was going to get in, Roe v. Wade was in danger with that one support of that one judge of being overturned. People say, "Oh, Roe v. Wade can never be overturned." No, don't be so passive. See, this is why presidential elections matter. People always say, "Oh, presidential elections, they don't really matter because what does the president really do for us?" No, incidents like this for women, for even minorities, even LGBT people. Do you think Oprah felt won't can't be overturned? Do you think certain civil rights cases can't be overturned with the majority of conservative judges? Of course they can. Anything that is put into action can be overturned. So presidential elections do matter, and so do the midterm elections. You think they don't because you think, oh, well, every president is pretty much the same. Yes, on foreign policy, you're probably right. When it comes to dealing with the Middle East, they all pretty much deal the same, and they've all pretty much dealt the same throughout history. America's enemies is America's enemies. But on domestic policy, things that don't matter to you on the ground when it comes to you, um, they matter. You know what I mean? Who's the president does matter. Because right now, conservative judges outnumber liberal judges. So if the conservative movement wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade on a national level, not just Texas, on a national level, they could. But what they're trying to do is, I told Lisa this, they're trying to do it state by state. Texas first, North Carolina next, Georgia next, Alabama next. They're trying to do it state by state in order to increase the voting population, the white voting population. Because the anti Roe v. Wade movement, the anti abortionist movement, was taken up as a mantle by the evangelical Christians. Do you guys know what was their first was the thing that gave birth to the political evangelical movement here in the United States? Not evangelicalism in terms of spirituality. Again, just like my last video. Yes, there's the Islam, but then there is political Islam. What gave birth to the modern evangelical movement, political movement here in the United States was school segregation. School segregation, when the government under Jimmy Carter wanted to desegregate the schools, the private schools, the Christian schools, like that's when the moral majority became a thing. But then after a while, after the 70s, it became unpopular to oppose school segregation. So they shifted their focus, they shifted their modus operandi to abortion. At first, the evangelical movement, Jerry Falwell and R.J. Reshtuni, and all the architects of the evangelical Christian evangelical movement that started political evangelicalism, they didn't support they didn't support um, the anti-abortionist movement. Why? Because it was mostly Catholic. Catholics were behind the anti-abortionist movement in the beginning, and the evangelicals here in the states The ones in the South, like Jerry Falwell, R.J. Rushdoony, and them, they didn't they didn't support uh, abortion. Their thing was school choice. Um, that not to integrate the Christian schools with black students. But when that became unpopular by the 80s, they switched it. Then they just started to support abortion, started to hop on board with the Catholics and support abortion. But at first they didn't. The evangelical, the political evangelicals, the Christian right, like Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson and Oral Roberts and R.J. Rushdoony. um, Lisa saying, I never understood why U.S. men in the government try to tell the women what to do with their bodies, but they worry about the rights of women in the Middle East. Of course, Lisa, because there is something called, in Latin, a casus belli. They have to go to war in the Middle East, so they need a casus belli. They need a reason to go to war. In ancient Roman politics was built off war. So every time the Romans wanted to go to war with a different group, say the Carthaginians or the Greeks, right? They would need a reason. They would need a casus belli. Oh, well, the Carthaginians attacked us, so we got to go to war again with the Carthaginians. The Greeks in in Asia Minor attacked us, so we need a reason. So they need a reason. They need a pretext to go to war. So they said they'll say, oh, well, we got to go to war with the Middle East because of the women's rights, but they don't respect women's rights over here. They don't care about women's rights over here. They want to limit the rights of women over here. Basically, these evangelical movements, these political evangelical movements, like Jared Falwell and people like that, the moral majority, these are like the Taliban, but these are the American version of the Taliban. They agree with the Taliban in almost everything. The only thing they disagree with the Taliban on is Islam. They want to say swap Christianity for Islam and swap the Quran and the Hadith for the Bible, and then we're good. You know what I mean? Like, because you got to remember, and this is a good thing and a bad thing. In Christianity and Islam and Judaism, everything, 95% of it is all the same. They all come from the Middle East. They're all religions run by men, and they all support strong patriarchies and limiting the rights of women. Now, it's a good thing if you're trying to bring religions together. You say, well, look, we're all the same. But the bad parts of this being the same are the bad part. They're the same in the bad parts, and they're the same in the good parts. They're products of Middle Eastern culture, of Middle Eastern understanding, of Middle Eastern mentalities. And in a Middle Eastern mentality, whether it's Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, men are on top and women are on the bottom. Women are held to unfair modesty standards, and men are not. Men could cheat on their wives, men could abuse their wives, men could have children out of wedlock, and women cannot. Notice this rapper Nick Cannon, right? Nick Cannon, Mariah Carey's ex-husband, goes around talking about how he's justified because of an African culture, justifying having multiple women because in African culture, that's how it was done, appealing to pre-colonial African culture. Well, he's wrong because in African culture, women had multiple husbands, not just polygamy, it's not just polygamy, it's polyamory as well. women with multiple husbands. And in traditional African culture, traditional African religion, unlike the Middle Eastern religions of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, women had a more respected role in society. There was goddess worship in ancient Africa. In all the African pantheons, whether it be Yoruba, whether it be Congolese, whether it be ancient Egyptian. Okay, he's not a rapper. Okay, he's okay. He did rap a little bit. Okay, technically, he's not a rapper, but my point still stands. What he's saying is that marriage, whatever, is a European concept. That's not true. You know what I mean? It's not true that um, men are allowed to be misogynistic assholes in traditional African culture. Now, okay, he's talking about modern African culture. Modern African culture is Muslim or it's Christian. You know what I mean? Nigeria is heavily Christianized. Somalia, Eritrea is heavily Islamicized. South Africa is heavily Islamicized. The Congo is Catholic. You know what I mean? So the African mentalities of today, the modern era, are a reflection of Christianity and Islam, not a reflection of traditional African culture, which put the woman and the men on equal status. You know what I mean? So Nick Cannon's full of crap. He doesn't know anything about African culture. Maybe he's talking about African culture today that is patriarchal, but traditional African culture is anything but patriarchal. In Dahomey, which is the comprised the countries of Benin and Togo, you had African warriors, African warrior women, like in they showed in Black Panther. You know what I mean? So women were women were highly respected. Women's rights were respected. Women's bodies were respected. It wasn't this patriarchal shit that we see coming out of the lawmakers in Texas or the people in the Taliban or Boko Haram, or Al Shabaab in Africa. You know what I mean? It wasn't any of this kind of stuff. That's Christianity and Islam mostly doing that. That's the influence of Christianity and Islam and the conservative branches of those religions, not traditional African religion. For example, look at the Yoruba tradition. Doesn't Nick kind of know anything about that? The Yoruba tradition, they have Babalaos and they have Ialaos. They have men priests and they have women priests on equal status. E- e- Gender equality in traditional African religion. So Nick kind of doesn't know what he's talking about. But anyway, and the people in Texas are hypocrites. They talk about how the Muslims don't respect women's rights, but they don't respect women's rights in either. They come out of the same wellspring. Okay, Lisa says, I just read an article yesterday that California is expected to outlaw stealthing, becoming the first state to make it illegal to remove a condom. Yes, California. Wow. Okay, cool. California is drifting towards a more liberal bent, which is good. But again, I say, how can that be? How can one state be becoming more and more red and another state becoming more and more blue, and then us maintaining a same? Uh, yeah, that's good. Outlawing rape. One state is becoming completely secular, and another state is becoming completely more liberal. This is what happened in Pakistan. Colonial India. The British never wanted to give colonial India its independence after the British Raj because they knew that you had the Muslims on one hand and you had the Hindus on another, and they couldn't see eye to eye. They couldn't agree to stuff. And how could they ever form a country? Either one person's rights are going to be completely trampled over, or another person's. by one group, or not the other person's rights going to be completely trampled over. They can't be on two different wavelengths. It's like in a marriage. If two different people want two different things in life, how can they ever be married? So it's becoming like that here in the United States. You have California drifting in that direction. You have Texas drifting in this extreme other direction. And eventually, what's going to happen, like the Arabic word, talaq, break up, everything is going to go, we're going to go end up going our separate ways, like the MGTOW movement. What I want to say, my opinion on this issue, what do I feel? I feel that a woman's body choice is a woman's body. It's a right. It's a choice. Um, Tupac said in his song "Keep Your Head Up," and I quote, "Since a man can't make one, he has no right to tell a woman when and where to create one." And these are what this is. These lawmakers in Washington and the Supreme Court, most of them, some of them are women, like Amy Coney Barrett, but most of them are men. And they're sitting there telling a woman what to do with her body and her ways. Uh, you know, who that can she have a kid? Can she not have a kid? All right, that's not their place. If women want to be against abortion and pro-abortion, want to have kids, don't want to have kids, fine. That's a woman's choice. But men who don't carry a child have no say in the matter. Okay, good. And that kind of reflects a kind of like Americanist attitude in a way. Like we feel, again, like with Afghanistan, we feel like we have the right to tell Afghanistan how to govern their country. These men feel they have the right to tell other people, you know, to tell women they never even met can, if they can have a kid or not. Basically the attitude of entitlement. You feel like you're entitled, your opinion should matter so much that I should govern my life by it. That's bullshit. A man has no right to tell a woman what she can and cannot do with her body. It's female autonomy. Right. Lisa's absolutely right. But Lisa, that's not going to happen because, again, the Judeo Christian Islamic mentality that women, that the woman's body is the domain of the man. Women are told in the New Testament as well as the Old, as well as the Quran, to submit to the men. Submit to the men. Submission to the man. And this is and men could cheat, but women can't. Men could have multiple wives in these kind of traditional Middle Eastern societies, of which Christianity is one. Even though white supremacists don't want to admit it because they want to pretend that Jesus was a white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes, even though he came from the Middle East, and all these religions come from the Middle East. The kind of Middle Eastern mentality is that women should be submissive and should submit to their man. Not so in traditional Native American or traditional East Indian Hindu or traditional um, African societies. Wasn't like this. In those societies, women ran the show because you had goddesses. Okay, African society you had Ochun, Yumaya, mother goddesses. Even Greek society, you had goddesses like Hera, um, Aphrodite. Egyptian society, Isis. Babylonian society had Ishtar. Even Canaanite pre-Israelite society had Asherah. These were mother fertility goddesses, the mother goddesses in Rome, like Scylla. When you had these mother fertility goddesses, men respected fertility. They didn't feel like they had a monopoly um, over fertility. People, and the first thing people are going to say, well, Judaism has a respect for motherhood because um, they respect the matriarchs like Sarah and Leah and all those, or Christianity has a respect for mother because respects Mary, or Islam has respect for mother because they respect Aisha or Fatima, right? But women in these religion stories, um, these religious constructions, uh, they play a subordinate role. They don't play a primary role in the way that women in these traditional stories, like the mother goddesses in ancient Rome, uh, played. Jupiter and Hera were on the same level in ancient Rome. Artemis and Apollo, twins on the same level in ancient Greek and Rome. Yamaya was on the same level, in a sense, with Obatala in Yoruba cosmology. Isis was on the same level with Osiris in Egyptian cosmology. Yeah, that they would they would hate that because men never like being told what to do with women. They hate being told what to do with women now. Look at something as trivial as the WWE, right, Elise? When they after 2015, when they started pushing the Divas Revolution, and men were like, "Oh shit, I don't want to see, t- I I don't want to see women, be put into a subordinate position. I mean, into a dominant position in WWE. I don't want to continuously turn on my TV and see Sasha Banks or Charlotte or any of these other divas featured as main characters, not in bra and panties matches, not in demeaning stuff like having Trish Stratus bark like a dog to Vince McMahon on TV, but as traditional superstars, as main stars, as big as Stone Cold Steve Austin, as big as The Rock, and as big as John Cena. They didn't want to see that. You know, they wanted to see they wanted women to be in the subordinate position. Same thing with a lot of religions. They won't allow women to become priests or imams or rabbis, but they want women to be in a subordinate position. So I think, like when the Episcopal Church decided to ordain, the Episcopal Church decided to ordain women as priests. I think it was like in 2011 or whatever. People overreacted. Men don't like to see women in positions of power. They don't have a problem with women in pop culture, or especially in pop culture and religion or whatever in their domains or spaces, playing subordinate roles as sidekicks, like a girl Smurf or a girl Ninja Turtle. But as soon as you have her leading the pack, as soon as you have her being the main character, being the one that is featured in all the storylines in a show or in a religion, then it's a problem. So, okay, they'll say, like in the Jewish religion, they'll say, well, we respect women because, again, Sarah, Leah, Rachel, Esther is part of the story. But Esther saves the day, but Mordecai in the book of Esther, is seen as the hero. So Esther's role is still subordinate. So in most of these religions, the women converted first. A lot of the early Jesus followers in Judea and stuff that were his early followers were women. Women drove the conversion of Islam. I mean, Christianity initially. Mary Magdalene, Martha, Lazarus' sisters. Okay, even in Islam, the first person to accept the message of Muhammad in Islam was his wife Khadijah. She was the first Muslim. It was her who pointed her uncle Waraka ibn Nawfal to Muhammad so that this guy Waraka ibn Nawfal could explain what was going on with Muhammad, why he felt he was having these attacks, and he explained it to him that he was like the prophets in the Old Testament, like uh, Moses and stuff. Even in Moses' story, okay, Pharaoh's daughter, she's the one that saves Moses from the river. Had Moses not been saved by Pharaoh's daughter in the river, we would not have had Moses. We would not have had Exodus. Miriam is just as important a figure, Moses' sister, a prophetess in the Old Testament as Moses and his brother. But it gets reinterpreted. It gets reinterpreted and reworked to the point where now women are in the background and men are in the front once it becomes popular. Even rock and roll. Rock and roll would not have been rock and roll if it was not for Sister Rosetta Tharpe. If it was not for the female rock and roll singers that were the ones coming out of the Christian church, coming out of the Black Baptist church, singing those songs, singing them rock and roll songs. Tina Turner, she gets credit, yeah, because she left Ike. But back in the day when they were on top, when they were really singing, it was Ike getting all the credit. So women do a lot of stuff and men get a lot of the credit because of the patriarchy that we live in. Even with Bill Clinton, who was the brains of Bill Clinton? The brains of Bill Clinton was his wife, Hillary. So that's why people said she was all ready to. Even Trump was seen as a misogynistic movement, pro-men, right? But it was really Ivanka driving the car. Trump was just the figurehead. Anyway, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell button to see when my next video is coming out. Love y'all.